Sleep. It's something that most of us do every single night.
But how does sleep actually work? Why don't we start off with a definition? The colloquial way that we define sleep is as follows. Sleep is a condition of the body and mind that typically recurs for several hours every night, in which the eyes are closed, the postural muscles relaxed, the activity of the brain altered, and consciousness of the surroundings practically suspended. Sleep can either be thought of as a verb or a noun. So that's how we think of sleep in colloquial terms when we use it in everyday context. It's essentially when we go to bed at night and we just switch our brains off for a bit. But what if I told you that sleep is way more complicated than just switching a brain off? What if sleep is actually a super complex, complicated cycle of different patterns of brain activity? Well, this is actually what sleep is. So scientifically, we can think of sleep in three main phases. The first phase is the awake state. This is essentially as it says on the tin. You are awake, you are aware, and you are at a higher level of brain activity. The next phase and category of sleep is what we call rapid eye movement sleep, also called REM sleep. This is essentially when you're asleep, but you're dreaming. Eyes are rolling in your head. That's why it's called rapid eye movement sleep. And there's lots of things happening, like your muscles are twitching. So you're essentially in a state of sleep, but you're not in a super deep state of sleep. You have some degree of consciousness of your surroundings, and this is where stuff can get super interesting in terms of things that you hear in your outside world suddenly showing up inside your dreams. Just things like that we can't really entirely explain yet. The next type of sleep is what we refer to as non-REM sleep. This is what's essentially a deeper state of sleep, and non-REM sleep is itself broken into components, with level 4 being the deepest state of sleep. In a nutshell, these different phases of sleep are all essentially different patterns of brain activity. And the simplest way I can explain this to you guys is that in the deeper states of sleep, your brain is essentially isolated from the outside world. You are in your own little head and you aren't really cognizant of the things going on around you. You don't know that the sun's rising, you don't know that the birds outside are chirping, you don't know that your brother's just walked into your room. Your brain is in its own little world. And to go into a bit more scientific detail, since this is, of course, a somewhat scientific YouTube channel, there's this little structure in your brain called the thalamus. And the thalamus is super important. It regulates your very basic things that keep you alive. This is things like controlling your temperature and regulating your breathing rate. You then have another part of your brain called the cortex. This part is also super important, but in a different way. This part gives rise to a lot of the more complex and fanciful characteristics that make you human. It underlies our social bonding, our decision making, and our ability to process complex information. You can think of deep sleep as a state where the thalamus and the cortex are synchronized to each other, i.e. the cortex is less attuned to the things happening outside. And this is where REM sleep can get super duper interesting to think about. In one way, REM sleep can be thought of as the cortex being fed all of these rapid and vivid images from your memories, and these forming the basis to your dreams. So that's how we define sleep in a scientific nutshell. It's essentially a cycle of different phases that your mind goes through and also your body goes through at different phases through the night as you go through your entire sleep. So it's not as if you're sleeping and you transition smoothly from REM to non-REM and that's it. You actually go through these little mini cycles of sleep. And this is where I want to talk a bit about how I personally optimize my sleep. So if we think about optimizing sleep, I like to think of it in two different parameters. The first is sleep quality. I try and make sure to do things like making sure my bed's comfortable, making sure I have white noise to help me sleep, making sure that my room is nice and cool, and that I just feel generally relaxed and comfortable before going to bed. One practical thing I try to do is to read about 20 or 30 minutes before sleeping. The book I last read is called Rich Dad Poor Dad. If you guys want me to make a quick review on it, do let me know in the comments below. I found it personally very insightful. And another more practical thing I like to do before bed is to make sure that I don't eat or drink too close to going to bed, just to kind of let my body relax a little. Now, in terms of sleep amount, the golden standard I aim for is always 8 to 8.5 hours every single night. This is personally what works for me. This, of course, may vary between individuals, sometimes more, sometimes less. Just a really quick disclaimer, I'm not yet a doctor, I'm only in my fourth year of medical school, so none of this is medical advice, I'm just talking about my own experiences with sleep. Now, on to the interesting, super meaty bit. Why is sleep so important? Why have experiments where people have deprived themselves of sleep had such negative effects? Why do we feel so awful when we go without sleep? Trust me, I felt this way. So, in essence, sleep is your brain's chance to reset itself from everything that happens in the day. There's various different theories and studies around sleep and what it actually does to your body. A couple of the more interesting ones, I think. Studies have actually shown that sleep might actually increase your memory recall. From my own personal experience, I do certainly find that I am way sharper and faster when I've had enough sleep. And on the contrary, when I'm sleep deprived on 1 or 2 hours of sleep because of way too much yapping, then I'm probably not as sharp. One theory is that while you sleep, your brain gets rid of certain brain connections. Kind of a way of the brain keeping itself fresh, allowing it to reset and really just recharge from all the happenings of the day. So, as you guys can probably tell, the science around sleep is still somewhat murky and there's a lot of things up for debate. But what is super clear is that sleep is very important for your body. So obviously in a perfect world, you guys are going to go away with this amazing understanding of what sleep is, how it works, and why it's so important, and have perfect sleep every single night. But this is not reality. I'm a student and I know how chaotic things can get. I've been out late at night, I've been studying till late at night, and it's not always possible to have this super smooth, linear, regimented sleeping pattern. So the practical way I approach things is to always aim for 8 hours of sleep. I don't always get it. Sometimes I get 6, sometimes I get 4, sometimes I get 2 hours of sleep. But one thing I do is that even if I'm past my bedtime, even if my routine isn't optimized, even if I've had way too much to eat, I'll always try and get as close to 8 hours as I can. Look, I know things are hectic, I know times can get stressful, but one thing that I have noticed and I firmly believe in is that a good night's sleep can really make the difference to you being able to face your day with that much more confidence and that much more energy. And with all of that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and do make sure to subscribe if you're interested in this type of content. And with that being said, it is now lights out.